Greetings, dear friends. Before starting the project development, we still have a few steps to complete. In this lesson, we will be setting up CI/CD for the project. What is CI/CD? It is the process that we need to automate and transform. These are our files that will be on our GitHub repository into a working WordPress site. For this, we will essentially need two sites, so to speak, two servers. This will be a test server for which I created the subdomain dev.geniuscurses.com, and a production server I created another for it, subdomain.live.geniuscurses.com. That is essentially two different sites. In this course, I will show the code that I use for working with large clients. I am not claiming that this is the only correct code. It is one of the codes. For my own sites, personal sites, I use a different code, but I will comment on that a little later. Let's return to the topic of the lesson itself. And so we will be building the ICD in such a way that our files which come into the repository here are compiled, if a compiler is needed, maybe archived, then unarchived, and turned into a working site on these two platforms, on Dev and on Live. Live is our production site. The site we're in for clients is the same site given on different servers. When we add some new option, it first goes to the test on the dev site. If the site doesn't break and everything works perfectly, then only in this case do we make these changes. These changes will then be sent to the live site on the production server. In this lesson, we will automate all of this with the help of GitHub Actions. There is a tab called Actions on GitHub, and this is where the automation will take place. If you don't know what it is, GitHub Actions, I have a course, and I recommend you check it out now. Basically, everything we will write in this lesson, we will write an instruction which is called a workflow. You can simply use copy-paste and apply this instruction, which I will write in this project for your own projects. If you want more, to understand this topic in detail, I still recommend you go to the tab and watch the course on GitHub Actions. Then the code I will write today will be clear to you. If you are a complete beginner, the code will most likely be unclear to you, but my comments will help you understand its structure and why it works the way I indicate. A few words about the sequence of what we will be doing in this lesson. Essentially, we have three websites that we are working with. One site is a site in Docker on the local machine, which we develop in the browser and can test changes. The second site is the dev server on the server, which has the same configuration as the live server. It's just a separate site. We send changes there as a second step to see if everything works with the real, as it were, live site. If everything is okay, then we would send it to the live server, which is the third step to the third site. Now let's look at our source files. Here we have the theme located in the folder of the Roots plugins, and there are also folders for the Roots project plugin. But in WordPress, these directories are located in a completely different place. So in our automation, we will need to take these files and directories, themes, plugins, MU plugins, everything we need, and distribute them to the necessary directories. We will also do this in automation. Secondly, on the local machine, here in SRV, we have a pod WordPress folder. We don't have it on GitHub, we don't need it there. But for the server, we will upload a new WordPress every time with each request. This approach has its peculiarities, and I will provide additional commentary as we write the workflow. But the peculiarity is as follows. For large projects, unlike, for example, my personal websites, which are not as large, on my personal sites, I use a WordPress installation, which I set up once at the beginning. And for CI/CD, I simply, for instance, update the theme folder, or a folder with a certain plugin, but the WordPress core. I don't touch it, and whenever an update for either WordPress or some plugins is released, I always click the update button in the admin panel and update it. But in large projects, these options are disabled because there is always someone responsible for monitoring updates in large projects. This person updates WordPress and they update the plugins. For this reason, we forcibly set the WordPress version here in our project in CI/CD, and every time we upload files, whether themes or plugins, we will also overwrite them. Technically, we won't overwrite, but we'll delete the old WordPress and upload a new one of a specific version that we set, and the same applies to plugins. That is essentially if we want to use some third-party plugins in the project. We will have to upload the directory with this plugin here into our project because we will be deleting the old plugin directory from the server and uploading a new one there. You might logically ask why such complexities, why not just update the theme directory and the directories with specific plugins. Of course, you can do it that way without any problems. From the perspective of even WordPress recommendations and security, it is advised that whenever an update is available for third-party plugins, themes, or WordPress itself, you should always click the Update button in the admin panel. But here is where the mismatch with large projects occurs. Large projects cannot afford automatic updates and updates in general. Some to prevent the site from accidentally breaking and stopping working, so to speak. Therefore, a separate person is responsible for updates, and on large sites, automatic updates are simply disabled. And in general, all updates for plugins, themes, everything is disabled. Updates occur only in a semi-manual mode through the repository. First, the new version of the plugin is tested, and if everything is fine, only then is it added. Right here, in our catalog essentially, all the plugins that will be used on the site will also be in our project. They will be located here. And only if the developer personally checked it, they then placed it in this catalog and released it to the dev server, tested it once more, and then launched it into production. But there is no such situation where a site administrator, I repeat, not a developer, but an administrator, clicks update in the admin panel, and some conflict arises between the plugins and the site, and consequently the site crashes. To prevent this from happening, this approach can be used, but again, it's up to you to decide. We will write the instructions, I will comment on them, and you can decide for yourself which steps might not be necessary to take. This workflow can be simplified. So, to create a workflow, we need to create a folder named GitHub at the root. We create such a folder at the root of our repository, our project. In this folder, we create a new folder called Workflows. This structure will help, obviously, GitHub understand that it needs to look for instructions in this directory, and the instructions are set in the YAML language in a special configuration file. You can name this file anything you like. I usually name it CI/CD, and consequently, if it is written in YAML, the file extension will also be YAML. Like this. There can be several of these files. GitHub simply goes to the location and checks. And you already understand that you can determine the name yourself. The first thing we need to set is a name for our workflow. I will name it Game Store Deploy. Again, you can specify the name yourself. The second important step, we need to specify a trigger for when we will run this automation. And here I will comment. We will have two triggers because we have two servers, test, production. So we have a branch from the main repository with the main code. We will also create a branch D where we will push changes. Some test branches, maybe other branches we will merge. And to ensure this, first on the test server, we will push them to the dev branch. And here in the instructions, we will track this trigger when pushing to branch dev. We will have directly occurring the sending of information files from our directories to the div server and also for the live server. We will not hook onto the push, but we will hook onto the main branch, our main branch. But we will hook onto the release trigger, meaning when we manually create some release and it will have the type published, then the files will be sent to the production server. So to speak, that's why we write trigger 2 in this way for the production site. The following job needs to be specified. And first, we need the infrastructure. The infrastructure will run on Ubuntu operating. We specify the latest version, then we will break it down into stages. The first step, guys, is that we need to download everything from our repository into this working machine. Essentially, with this line, when I set up the virtual infrastructure, a virtual computer is created, and with this checkout step, I need to download the files from the repository, essentially these files, into that virtual machine. According to the syntax, I must first specify a name for this step. Name will be checkout for us. Secondly, I need to specify the action that will be used. In this case, it is actions checkout, but not a specific version. I specify master. In this way, this step will create a copy of all these files. There, on the computer, I need to prepare the WordPress files for overwriting. Here, we don't need an offset. It should go in a straight line, like this. Therefore, I create a new step here. I will name it Prepare WordPress Zip. Because I need to create a WordPress archive on this virtual machine, I will run the command. So, to write a command over multiple lines, I use this symbol and can write the command across several lines. I need to download WordPress from the official site of a specific version. To make it easier for the future developer who will be responsible for WordPress versions and plugin versions, I will create a separate configuration file at the root of the project, and they will be able to simply change the link there. Therefore, we create a new file here at the root. For example, VP version control. You can name it whatever you find comfortable with the extension config. In this way, in this file, we set the download link for WordPress for the version we want to use. So the link is kind of dynamic. It doesn't change just workplace. There's a table, and all old releases have a download link. We can download any version at any time. They are available through such links. WordPress or WordPress name version, let's say. For example, zip. If I run this link in the browser now, it will download WordPress of this specific version. Let's run it to demonstrate this. You see, I have here WordPress of this specific version downloading. Let's see what the current version is at the moment. I suggest we set a more current version here. So in this way, we created a configuration file at the root, and now we will simply read its value here. Essentially, we will have a zip link variable, and we will take the value from the file into this variable. Next, we need to download it. Place it in the WordPress archive. With this step, I enter this file, take the link to WordPress, download it, and create it at the root of the working machine. A WordPress.zip archive, which will contain a specific WordPress of a specific version. Next, in the following step, I will also prepare an archive for these data for plugins and new plugins. And for themes, they are stored in the VP Fence directory, so I will also name the archive thematically. Thus, we call the step .dag attach with address and on the fin. Let's also call it deep, since we are indeed creating a zip for it, and we will run the command. The command here is in one line, so we immediately write here, create an archive. We will name it WP content. Into it, we will place the folders, the plugin folders, and the theme. Folders with this step. We have already packed our 3 directories where it lies. The source code is the most important, which we will write in this project. The next step is to send all this to the server. So we name it copies of zips to the server. Next, we need an action here that is responsible for uploading some files to the server. I will use a special action that was with SSH access beta connects to the server and sends the data there. By the way, autocomplete here suggests exactly what is needed. Less action with the parameters I need. So I will just use autocomplete and edit something. No? So this is the action I usually use to send files to the server. Next, for this repository, we will need to create secrets. Secrets are such variables with values, but they are kind of encrypted for one-time use. We assign them a value on the site itself. On the GitHub site, we can no longer see this value. We can only change it. That's why they are called secrets. They are used, for example, to transmit passwords. That is, I can't just put a password here, but I will pass it through a secret. And I don't know what key. I don't remember such a key. Usually this is our password, which means there is a name, we have an action, their goats. We will set the post further. With the username, we will set the user password. We will set the password, just not the key. I don't like such names. So we will set the port, then the secret for the port. Yesusi, which means we don't have just one WordPress 8.2 as a source. We did them in the previous 2 steps. So the first one will be WordPress zip next to VIP and content, and where to send these files. So here we need to take the path from our server. This path varies depending on the configuration and the type of server you are using. But the most important thing is not the path itself, but that we must set it dynamically. Because if we are going to push to the dev server, we will assume that we want to send changes to the test site to dev. So we will need to set the dev path here specifically. However, if our trigger is not a push to dev, but a release, meaning we are creating a release, then our instruction should understand that the path needs to be inserted for the live on the production server. And we can easily obtain this trigger and its value through the GitHub object variable with the value, event name. Essentially, our string here will look like this. We will have a GitHub at the object here with the key event name. And within it will be the name of this event. And if we have push as the event, push, then we need to set a specific path. So let's do it from the top, just in case if it's a release and there's no event, then let it be, so to speak. And if we do, then I will definitely send it to the dev server. Let's remove this from here. Here, let's highlight it like this. We will edit this path now. This is not the path we need. I'm now showing you how to make this separation. That is to send files depending on our trigger. Otherwise, well, the live server. That is technically, both of my sites are currently on the same server. They are just accessible through different domains, but their directories are next to each other. Essentially, for the dev server, I have a dev folder until Bashet on the server, and for live, I have a live folder. That's why this kind of setup works for us here. So I copied the path directly from my server and will add it here right away, meaning I have a public HTML directory. And in it, the directory is immediately named the same as the domain for the dev server and for the live server. Be careful always when writing paths in the workflow file, especially if you have multiple sites, because in the following steps we will be deleting, and you don't want to accidentally delete any of your other sites. Let's move on to the next step. Currently, we have WordPress archives on the server, but we cannot unpack them because this would cause a conflict between the files, and WordPress would show an error to site visitors. To prevent this from happening, we need to enable maintenance mode in WordPress. Maintenance mode. This is a mode that WordPress itself uses. It's an option in WordPress when updating its plugins. You might have noticed it when you click the button to update a plugin and at the same time open your site, and you see a white page with a message saying that the site is currently unavailable and will return in a few minutes. This is the maintenance mode. So the next step is to enable this mode. This step is called enabled maintenance mode. To enable it, we need to create a file named maintenance in the root of the site. Let's create it manually. Also create it in the root of the project. This file should be named .maintenance. The following PHP code should be in this file. And that's all. And every time this file is located in the root of your WordPress site, the site becomes unavailable. The logic is very simple. How does WordPress work? It creates this file and the site is disabled. When all file manipulations are finished, WordPress automatically deletes this file and our site returns to its original state. In our step in the workflow, we must also use this action to, via SSH, take the file from our repository and upload it to the root of the site on the server. Then perform other steps. Unzip our archives, unpack them, distribute them in the directory where needed, and finally, as the last step, delete this file that we uploaded to the server, delete it on the server. And the site will return to its original state. Therefore, I will take advantage of this here by copying this matter and paste it here. Very important. Do not forget that these spaces are crucial. So we carefully structure it to ensure it matches. The secrets will be set. We will get to them soon. We are interested in the maintenance file and the target parameter. We leave it the MySU as is since it is set in the path, and if it is a push, it will send it to the dev server. If it is not, then it is a release, meaning it goes to the live server. After activating this mode, we can proceed to unpack WordPress. So the next step, we will unpack, let's call it, this step is to update the WordPress core. We will use a different O action called SSH action. Here, I am using a specific version of the action, so I will specify the version. The parameters from the secrets are exactly the same, so I will just copy them. And we need to set the command. Using this specific action, it allows executing commands on the server, unlike the action used for transferring sorted files. I am using a script. Next, a symbol to write the command in multiple lines. And I begin writing the command. So, with the first command, I will start by deleting files and directories that are present in the root of our site to update the core of Varkas need to be deleted, but not all, because there are important directories such as the WP content which cannot be deleted. All uploads, media files, videos and so on are stored there. The first thing we do is search the site for all the files in the root of our project, except for the WP config file, because it contains configuration settings with the database and should not be touched. First, we carefully search in our location. I choose the location in such a way that we have 2 locations, depending on the trigger. So, as I said, any place in a PHP it's a files. But except for the file wp-config.php, and everything we find we delete. So let's make a little more space. This is the first command. It looks in the root of our site, searches for PHP files, selects them, ignores wp-config.php and deletes them. Besides PHP files, there are also directories left. In WordPress, you know there are several directories: WP content, WP admin, and WP includes. So now we need to delete WP admin and WP includes. We use the rm command. Specify a path. This is the path. We put a slash and write WP and admin. So we specified the first directory. We also specify the second directory. The second directory, we have VIP inclusion. I will open WordPress here or locally and show that the root of our site has these files and directories. You see, with the first command we create, locate the core, these PHP files, except for the config, except for this file, because it contains the database configuration. And with the second command, we select this folder and do this one. We don't touch this one because we will enter it separately. Why? Because it contains the upload folder. Currently on the local machine we don't have it. We haven't uploaded any files. But you should know that besides these directories, there are other important directories here. Therefore, we cannot just take and delete this folder. That's it. In principle, this command is also ready for us. We specified to delete and indicated 2 directories. Next step, we can already unzip our WordPress zip that we uploaded. So, unzip. We will specify even to the file. We will only take the location WordPress file zip. And once again, I'll insert the path, because we are going to unpack it, directly into the root of the site. So once again, I press Ctrl and click to paste the path. Now, this command has a special feature. It unpacks the WordPress files, the WordPress directory, and we will end up with it in the directory of our site. Instead of this list of files, there will be a WordPress folder, and inside it there will only be a list of folders and files. To make the site work, you need to move the files from the WordPress folder. Therefore, with an additional command, we will do this, meaning we will use move from the WordPress directory. We take everything that's there and move it to our root. So let's put slashes everywhere here. In the end, we need to delete this WordPress folder. That remains and basically that's it. WordPress where we are successfully updating. We will delete the zip archive itself a little later. We have 2 of them. We also have an archive with themes and plugins. Now we will do something similar, unpack them, and already in the last step, when we remove maintenance, this file we will also delete these zip archives so as not to make too many steps. In the next step, we will work with themes and plugins. Use as the name for the step. Update the plugin itself. He wonderfully suggested to me further, we will also use this on action to run commands, so I am copy-pasting it, inserting it here. Next, they use a script. Our command will be in several lines. So using a special symbol, let's think. So, we have one archive in which these three directories are located. We need to put them into this folder, VP content, and for example, replace this directory, this one, and this one. So first of all, we need to delete these three directories from here, not the entire folder, but specifically the three directories, because, there will be other directories that must not be touched or deleted. Let's write the command then. For deletion, I did copy-paste. I don't trust the autocomplete because the path is long and it might look correct at a glance, but artificial intelligence still. It's artificial and might make a typo here. So this is the path to the root of our site. But we need the directory VIP and content. This first one from the root slash logins, this directory needs to be deleted. I'm copying the entire path. With a space, I need to add these three locations here. Space. Tos em Iplodius 3. Folder, films. This command will clear the specified directories. With the next command, I will extract my archive. My archive is located at the root of the site, under the key VP content zip. And it has exactly the same directory names, so I can simply extract it right here. That's why I use such names in the project, so I could just extract it into this WP folder. I insert the path, but with the location WP content. So here we emphasize, yes, it's not a script, but a script. With this step is completed. The last step we need to do before closing this workflow is to delete, first of all, the maintenance file, the one we transferred, and the site will come back online. And the archives that are no longer needed in the root of the site. Let's call it disable. Maintenance mode and remove zips. Again, it will use this action for us. And by copy-pasting, inserting here. The command we will use to delete is as follows. So, the first file is maintenance. Copy the entire line into the next command and delete it now. The file. VP content zip. And use this command again, but delete WordPress.zip. And now our workflow looks complete. 2 steps remain. These are to add the necessary secrets so it can operate. Send this data to the repository and test this workflow. Let's get to it. To create secrets, we will use these keys. And we set them specifically on GitHub. So we go to GitHub, open our project for which we are creating this, and go to settings. And here we have secrets and variables. We need to go in for action and create secrets. Create a new secret. Give it a name. Add the value here. I will pause now and add my secrets for SSH access. But remember, when you revisit, this secret will always appear empty here. You won't be able to view the data, you can only update it, so I've added my secrets. It's important that the keys match, meaning it will find these secrets by this specific key. Now we can send this data to the repositories. If I just push now, nothing will happen. So I have sent them. We go to action, nothing is starting. Notice that the Actions tab already looks different because GitHub sees that we have a directory here with a workflow for automation. But nothing is happening. Our servers are still empty. Let's first simulate a deployment to the dev server. To make this happen, we need a new dev branch. Let's create it. We return to our project. We go to the terminal. Run the command git branch dev. It created this branch. Next, we switch to this branch. Git check out dev. And now we are on the dev branch, on the local machine. We need to publish this branch, but when pushing and publishing this branch, this workflow will start. Therefore, I will carefully review it now to see if everything is correct to avoid accidentally deleting the files I need, since access is directed to the root of the server where I have my working projects. Everything looks fine, so let's publish this branch, our repository. Let's see what's happening. You see the workflow is starting. We go into Actions, and here our workflow is starting in progress. It's already 6 seconds. This means the files have been downloaded, so with the checkout. The archives were also prepared successfully. They were successfully sent to the server. Maintenance mode has been activated. The only thing is I don't see maintenance mode. Most likely I have Cloudflare and it's a cache issue. Now I will disable the cache for this site, but the workflow looks quite successful. Let me disable the cache and we will check. No, the problem is not in the cache. The problem is something else. Let's figure it out now. So I open the server to see what's in our test directory, and in our test directory there is a folder with themes, plugins and mail plugins. But everything else is missing here, which means we have an issue at one step. And it turns out the issue is that when we move from the WordPress directory, the root didn't give any error. It executed, which means it moved something somewhere. But most likely we had a typo and not to the correct directory. The files were moved. Let's check and fix it. The logs will help us determine this. At the step update WordPress OR, this is where we encounter problems. Let's see. What's happening out here? This means error. It cannot delete these directories VP, admin, VP include. This is understandable because initially at the first step we don't have them further. It creates this WordPress directory and starts creating all the files there. Everything is correct. So there should be a long list of files, meaning the WordPress directory exists because it is created, and in it this big long list of files. But from this directory it cannot. Here's another error, the move command. It does not see such a file and such a directory. This the path is not clear to it. We have the move command, the path. I'm really interested in this ending. WordPress. Let's try to output this here. Let's try now. So, fix. I am still on the dev branch, so I push the changes and Ortlu will start again anew for me. So, we push the changes. We go into the workflow. You see it starts anew. Now we will enable maintenance mode. It is basically enabling it now. It won't be shown since WordPress itself, but it won't be in the future. If everything goes well now with subsequent changes, it will already display. This error that I mentioned in the lesson, wonderful indeed. Yes, there was a problem with the command. We fixed it. Now we have WordPress on the test server. It needs to be installed. This is done once. In all subsequent cases, only the files will be updated, and consequently, maintenance will also work for us. Our live server is still empty. Yes, it also needs to perform this initial installation, so to speak. Let's simulate this as well and close it here. All logs, we no longer need these logs. In order to make a release, we can do this directly through the repository. So in this tab, yes, we create a new release. We will specify for it. So 01. And I set some title, and the release didn't go through to publish this release. We go into the action, and a new workflow is automatically created for us, but it will already be sending to another server. We have dynamics. Here is our dynamics, and it consists of this line, which is very long, so our workflow is hard to read. In essence, these paths are shorter. In fact, they are like this, and the workflow is easier to read and more understandable, but it is what it is. Now it will finish execution of this workflow. We will have to install WordPress manually, meaning we need to click continue and add options to connect with the database. It's not like Docker here. Here, this step needs to be done manually. Get the database access credentials from the server or hosting and create this site. And by the way, a very logical question arises. CI/CD and all these test servers, how to work with the database. The database is different everywhere. Students have written to me asking how to set it up so that both the test server and the production server use the same database. It's not done like that anywhere. I have never used the same database for both the test and production servers in my projects. I don't do any synchronization. The test server has its own separate database, which may contain various junk, but that's because it's a test server or where you test things. The production server always has its own. On the local machine, there's a third database. For this reason, these two sites will have completely different databases. Let's update the live server as well. So on the live server, they didn't go. Changes. Why? Exactly the same error. To make sure of this, let's launch another release. So we'll create a new release for it. We'll specify a new tag of test, but we'll write and publish it. The release starts a new workflow. This workflow finished very quickly. So I understand what the problem is. It's the same problem, and it seemed like we fixed it, but we are in the dev branch, and we fixed it in the dev branch. But when the release happens, it releases to the main, and in the main branch, we didn't fix this moment. So for our workflow to work, we need to switch here. Main. And you see in the main branch, we have this line written in the old way. We update it to the new way. Specifically the move command. Next, we do a fix, meaning we make a new push, specifically to the main branch. A push to main won't trigger anything, meaning the commit will arrive, yes. It gets pushed, but it doesn't trigger any action because the main branch only launches a manual release. And let's do another one. That will definitely trigger. Let's call it final check. Hopefully it will truly be final. It's completed. Refreshing the page. The installer is loading. Everything is working perfectly. I have completed the installation of the sites on the server. Now we have working sites. We can use both this workflow and the overall project for starting the development of the site itself and the blocks. Here's what we did before this lesson, this project. You create a separate branch for it on GitHub, and you can use it as a starter theme, like a framework. To start new projects, essentially, you just need to change the secrets. Change the paths in the workflow for access, and that's it. You have a working project that can be used with the built workflow. At this stage, we are concluding the lesson, which turned out to be very extensive. See you in the next lesson where we will continue working on the current project.